So if you did enough solar geoengineering to, say, offset the effects of 4 times CO2, taking you all the way back to pre-industrial, and if you did it in the sort of way that makes the biggest particles, which would be crazy, then you can see some white.
David has been a crucial person, probably the leading scientist pushing for a research program in solar geoengineering, and he's even, in some of his writings, suggested we should be deploying it soon. One of the problems with it is that how much of it do we do? Initially, people were saying we should do so much to reduce the temperature back to pre-industrial levels, 1 degree Celsius or a bit more. David says, no, we need to do much less than that. But I just point out, there's a sulfur industry that would be called upon to provide the sulfur to be put in the planes to set up. Some of that sulfur comes from, is extracted from the flue gases of coal-fired power plants. And that same sulfur, which we don't allow into the lower atmosphere because it causes sulfur pollution, bad for health and so on, is then put on planes and put into the upper atmosphere where it blocks some sunlight reaching the planet. I think that, along with the damage to the ozone layer, would undo all of the work that we've been doing, reducing CFCs to try to reduce the hole in the ozone layer, really tells us that when you start messing with the chemistry of the upper atmosphere, you're really in very dangerous territory.
I want to go to the other side, but first I just want to ask the audience here in New York, have you had enough of a sketch of what it is we're talking about? Okay, I'm taking your word for it because I get it also.
But I want to respond to 2 points that Anjali made at the beginning. One is she said that it would make the precipitation change.
You mean Anjali?
Pardon?
You mean Anjali said?
Anjali, yeah. That it would make precipitation change. That's absolutely correct. But you didn't say which direction. And of course, one of the big risks of climate change is that precip, and especially intense precipitation, goes up. And what solar geoengineering does is it tends to reduce that. So you kind of hid from the audience the fact that one of the major risks of climate change, for example, extreme tropical cyclones, are not increased but reduced by solar geoengineering.
Okay, since you put a specific out there, I want to let Anjali respond to that if you would like to.
I agree with what David said, that the precipitation levels has sort of gone up with global warming, and the sort of idea that he's talking about is to sort of bring it back to what it was, as in what David's plan with, and the general plan with solar geoengineering is generally to bring back precipitation to what it was at earlier levels. But I think the real point to really think about here is that a lot of countries have sort of adapted to climate change over the years. It's not something that started today or yesterday. So a lot of, crop growth and a lot of the agricultural seasons in different countries have also adapted to climate change, and the sudden change back to what it was may not necessarily be in everybody's best interest.
I need to come in and say that is absolutely not my plan. I think that would be nutty. I've never advocated that. I actually don't know anybody who is. What the people who seem to be advocating for doing so, first of all, what we're advocating for is understanding. Understanding what the risks are, and for precipitation, if I was going to advocate anything, I advocate that we regulate it so it doesn't keep increasing.
And David, I think, has adjusted the plan to try to deal with as many of the objections that have been raised to it, including the ones that Anjali has mentioned. Now, if the world decides to go with David's plan rather than somebody else's more radical plan, perhaps, then maybe that's a good thing. But what I've noticed with David's plan is that he's been adjusting it over the years in a way that tries to head off the principal objections that people in fora like this have been making in order to make it more palatable to the general public.
Well, so let me just say,
politicizes.
But what you're doing there is you're questioning his motives as opposed to his science?
Well, no, I'm saying this is no.
Okay, because...
Well, no, I'm saying the science can't be separated from the way in which solar geoengineering is presented in a more palatable way to the general public.
I just want to, as a presumption here, like assume that all of our debaters are arguing in good faith, and if your plan has evolved in response to criticism or critiques or questions or challenges, I'm not sure.
I don't think I have a plan. I really don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's let Ted.
Yeah. May I comment on this?
Yeah.
So there actually is a lot of confusion between scientific results and things that people propose might be reasonable bases for action. And there's ways that you can get confused by mixing up the two. So it would probably be extraordinarily damaging and destructive to let CO2 go to 3 or 4 times pre-industrial levels and then hammer the Earth with solar geoengineering to bring it back to pre-industrial. I don't know anybody who's ever proposed that that would be a sensible idea.